Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, December 18th, 2023 at 7 p.m. and we're in regular session tonight. We always read land acknowledgement, and so I'd like to begin with that. We're on land occupied for millennia by the Adena, Hopewell, Fort Ancient, and Shawnee people. Our next item of business is to establish a quorum, and all members of council are here present tonight. We now have the disposition of the minutes, so if I could have a motion and second for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and this is for the regular session that was held November 20th, excuse me. We now have time for communications, so I'll start first with City Council members. Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd just like to acknowledge receipt of approximately 45 additional emails, phone calls, and one text message about our solid waste contract. About half of those, about 20 of those included specific comments about our going to new bins as part of the contract. And a number of those shared personal stories and experiences with waste haulers. Thank you, President Isley.
Okay. Yes, Councilmember Swank.
I've received several communications on the two major issues before us tonight, one dealing with the tobacco ordinance and one dealing with the beverage establishments. And at this point in time, it'd probably be best to address those when we get to that part of the discussion and the normal business of council.
Councilmember McCary.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to follow up on Councilmember Crowell's comments regarding the receipt of additional concerns from community members who would like to see us stick with our Hocking recycling company. And I would like to also echo the sentiment that folks have recommended that we consider delaying the acquisition of additional waste receptacles from Rumpke in favor of seeing how plans develop for establishing a council of governments that could potentially take over our waste management system. And I have made an inquiry to our Director of City Safety Services to confirm that that is something that we can look into with Rumpke, and there may be a penalty of some financial amount, but we want citizens to know that that concern has been heard.
Thank you. Any other council members? If not, we'll move on to communications and reports from other elected officials. Auditor Hecht. No report. Law Director Eliason. Mayor Patterson.
I just want to acknowledge I too have received a large number of emails and texts and whatnot from concerned citizens about our trash hauling.
Thanks. All right. We'll now move on to ordinances for second reading. 14023 is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 11, Business Regulations, to enact Section 11.13, Tobacco Retailer License, adding provisions requiring retailers to obtain a license for selling tobacco products. And this is introduced by Councilmember Grace.
Thank you, President Isley. I would like to make a motion that we suspend the rules for ordinance 14023.
Second.
Thank you, Member Crowell. And the reason for this is that this is our last scheduled meeting of this council, of this body. And so there is not another opportunity for this before this body. And additionally, with tonight's reading, because of the amendments, this is the fourth time that it has been read in council, and is also, it was previously discussed in committee. So.
Thank you. So we have a motion and second to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Okay, we have 6-1. And the rules have been suspended. Councilmember Grace.
Thank you, President Isley. And this ordinance, well, we've talked about it a lot, and there have been many voices participating in the discussion, and I would like to thank those who have engaged and who have reached out to us, and thank my fellow members of council for their tenacity in listening and continuing to be a part of the ongoing discussion. And just highlight that this is something that, as members of council, we cannot be the experts on every topic that comes before us. We do our best to learn thoroughly about the issue, but we rely on experts in the field. And we've been very fortunate in the work on this, going back for months, actually. The city has been working with professionals who do the work of protecting youth from nicotine addiction that can lead to serious health consequences. And that is, I think it's important that we understand that they have a great deal of expertise in this, and not just the organizations that have worked specifically with City Council and with our law director's office and with the city administration, but also the Centers for Disease Control recommends that states or municipalities adopt licensure structures to prevent premature death. The Surgeon General has found that licensing retailers is an evidence-based tobacco control measure to reduce tobacco use. The National Academy of Medicine, along with the American Heart Association and Tobacco 21, all recommend or support that states and municipalities adopt these licensures. And this is not something that is new to lawmakers across the state or across the country. It's something that has been well established as a process that municipalities in Ohio specifically do have the authority to do this.
And so
I would
be
like to make a
making
motion
to
that we
approve.
approve
Okay.
ordinance 14023 this evening.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Crowell.
Okay, so do you have any other comments? And then what we'll do is we intend to open the discussion up for council members and administration first, and then if there are comments from the public, you would have 3 minutes to make a comment for consideration. So I'll open it up for comments and questions first from our council members. Yes, Councilmember McCary.
Thank you, President Isley, and thank you, Member Grace, for your contributions to this health-oriented legislation. I had the opportunity to inquire to Councilmember Grace what actions might be necessary of council in the new year, assuming this legislation passes this evening, and was just asking if she might respond to some of those points this evening.
Sure. The most direct action that will be necessary is for legislation to be adopted to establish the fees for this licensure. And that is something that we would be required to establish fees that are appropriate to the cost of administering the program. And that requires input from our Office of Code Enforcement as far as their cost for their portion, but also from the City County Health Department for the part that they will play in conducting compliance checks and providing educational resources. So that would need to be adopted to establish what the fee structure would be for these licenses. And additionally, I think it would be beneficial to work with the Planning Commission to address the possibility of zoning changes, specifically looking at the density of tobacco retail establishments in the city. But that is not necessary for this legislation to be effective and fully legal and appropriately structured and enforceable.
Thank you.
Questions from other council members? Councilmember Swank.
I'm not sure where to start. Customarily, it's been the practice of this body to suspend the rules only when we had an emergency. An emergency might be something like, I think we're going to do that tonight, a grant deadline coming up, that if we don't pass in a very short period of time, we miss a deadline for a grant. And we certainly don't want to miss out on the return of taxpayer dollars to the city of Athens to do the things that we pride ourselves in doing. Sometimes we suspend the rules because we have a bill due. And I think we're going to pay a bill tonight. A bill that we owe. I don't see this as an emergency. Now, we've heard this is the last meeting of council, and if we don't do anything, the bill dies. Well, bills die in the Ohio legislature every year. And bills die in the Congress of the United States every year. But to rush this through at the very end with as many questions as we have just seems a bit disingenuous. I've called on multiple businesses in the last week who could be affected by this. And it's shocking how many are hearing it from me for the first time. I've said this before and I'll say it again. When I ran for council, one of the things I ran on was involving the public early in the process and not after the train had already left the station. Well, I'm afraid in this case, not only has the train left the station, but the conductor's already punched the tickets. That's not serving the people. So I have some questions and some comments. If council were to pass this tonight, and I'll have to defer to the clerk for this, it would then go to the mayor. And the mayor could veto it. The mayor could, does he have the option to not sign it?
He does.
And if he chooses not to sign it, what happens?
It goes into effect 10 days.
10 days, okay, all right. I did not know that, but now I do. Today at 11:03 a.m., the members of City Council got a letter from Mr. David Spross, and I may have mispronounced his name, from NATO. Not NATO up in the sky, but NATO, which is a national organization representing over 60,000 tobacco retailers in America. And the NATO letter informed council of something that I was aware of on the 13th of December. And that is that the Ohio House voted to overturn Governor DeWine's veto of a tobacco measure, basically saying local cities cannot enact this type of legislation. This now has to go to the Senate, which is probably in January. They have some sessions saved in January. Because this is not an emergency measure, and secondly, we don't know what the Senate's going to do, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me for us to pass this and start doing things when it might be a moot point if the Senate also votes to override Governor DeWine's veto. But there's another real problem I have with this, and it's in the section where we shut down private businesses. We often say that Athens is a town that promotes local private businesses and creates jobs. First of all, and I should have said this to start with, anything we can do to minimize teen smoking, reduce teen smoking, maybe even eliminate teen smoking, is a good thing. I am for this ordinance in concept 100%. But when somebody gets to the second violation in a 1,000-day period, that's what 3 years is, 1,000 days. And when someone gets to a second violation, their business is closed for 7 days. That means the people they employ don't have a job. And they might make it through that 7 days, but they sure as heck aren't going to make it through 30, and that's the next step. We don't have any business telling a business how to run their business. We do have the business to have people run their business in a responsible way. But when we start talking about taking away jobs, that really, really, really concerns me. You know, I'm looking at a couple of signs here, support local businesses. And I'm sure there's people here going to be talking about the trash contract and all that. then if that's the case, it extends across the whole continuum, not just one business, not just one industry. Next year, starting January 2nd, I've been appointed as the chair of the Planning Committee of Council. I will state right now unequivocally, let's move this to next year so we have a chance to vet it even more, talking with the business people, something that works. And as the chair of that council, I will commit right now in the very first month to bring this back before council again and get it passed in a form that makes sense.
Okay. Other council members? Comments?
President Isaac,
Come.
I could respond to some of Member Swain's concerns, or we could ask Wendy Hyde.
Why don't you go ahead and respond and see if Wendy wants to also.
So on the issue of the legislation, the Ohio House voting to overturn Governor DeWine's veto, that is a separate issue. That is a different issue. Governor DeWine vetoed a bill that would have prohibited municipalities from banning the sale of flavored vapes. This is not banning the sale of flavored vapes. That is what that legislation was, and there is not any guarantee that the Ohio Senate is also going to vote to overturn that veto, but it is, even if they do, it will not impact the effectiveness and the legality of this legislation. And in the interest of public health, municipalities, municipal governments, state governments absolutely have the authority, and I would say the duty, to impose regulations and guidelines on businesses. We do it for restaurants, for businesses that sell alcohol, for grocery stores. We have, as was noted in correspondence from an attorney, the city of Athens has a prohibition on the sale of fireworks within Athens city limits. That is something we have the authority and the ability to do. And this is something that we also have the authority to do. We are not banning or prohibiting the sale of any products with this legislation. We are simply saying that businesses that wish to sell it need to obtain a license, and they will then be subject to compliance checks to make sure that they are selling it legally, which is only to individuals over the age of 21. And this is not rushed legislation. This has been worked on for literally years in the state of Ohio, in other municipalities, other locations, and has been adopted in many cities and is being enforced around the state as we speak. So it's not something that I or anyone else here in the city of Athens just sat down and made up or wrote down on the back of a napkin. This is well researched, well informed legislation. And the individuals who worked on this, it is their job to support the passage of legislation like this to protect the health of youth across our state. And it is absolutely in the interest of those organizations to make sure that the guidance they provide to municipalities is accurate and that the legislation that they support will withstand challenges and is appropriate according to the law. So this is well vetted, well researched, appropriate legislation.
Okay. And Ms. Hyde.
Before we go,
Wait.
point of order. Normally we do council first before we bring in any consultants or
Correct.
anybody
And
else.
I
And I
asked
would like
everybody-
to respond to that, please.
You'll have 1 minute to respond.
Obviously, you didn't read the same document that I got, and I will read to you very clearly. I now write considering the vote on December 13th, 2023 by the State House of Representatives to override the governor's veto of that portion of House Bill 33 that preempts local jurisdictions from regulating the sale, licensing, and marketing of tobacco products. We're talking about licensing. And of course they're going to come up here and support this. They're lobbyists for a cause. I could go out and get lobbyists for the tobacco cause. Crap, if we look at that, look at some of the stuff they just passed. We're talking about transgender girls not being able to play sports. Those people are experts. Do we hang a label on somebody and label them an expert and suddenly we bow down?
Okay,
I
thanks
just
for the
don't get
response.
it. And we are rushing this.
Ms. Hyde, did you want to offer some comments? Yes, yes.
First of all, thank you for the moment to address a few of the issues. You are correct. The House did override the veto that Governor DeWine has put in place twice now. This is a broad sweeping preemptive action. We are not certain that the Senate will concur. This was done in rush and really has more to do with the political ideologies and aspects that are going on within the State House rather than the ideology that this is good for public health. I will say that across the state, there are 25 cities, municipalities, starting with the city of Columbus in 2016, that have passed effective tobacco retail licensing policies. In fact, probably by the end of the next hour, the city of Gahanna will also have passed a tobacco retail license program. We are continuing to move forward with tobacco retail licensing at the local level. And the preemptive action is really more about home rule. And at this point in time, you all have a responsibility. We have are privileged here in Ohio to be able to regulate and to be able to design our communities for what's best for the members and constituents that live within that community. I also want to say that there is sweeping support. The city of Cincinnati passed a tobacco retail license and has done a really good evaluation process for that. And most recently in 2023, just this year, from 2019 to 2022, retailer support in Cincinnati has increased by 38% in favor of tobacco retail licensing. When they first put their TRL in place, 48% of retailers were a little hesitant about how a tobacco retail license would play out within the city. They now, at 66% retailers, 66% of retailers say, you know what, a tobacco retail license was necessary. It's protecting the kids and within our community. One retailer even said, raising the minimum sales age to 21 helps young adults to make wise decisions whether or not they want to choose to smoke. And we are in favor of tobacco retail licensing. There's also broad community support, that is stated within this policy brief. I also want to mention there are many different industries, as Councilmember Grace mentioned, that require licensing. Here in Athens, for instance, food licenses all over the state, really, are required. They're based upon a risk of the individuals, right? So depending on which food license and costs of that license, it's based on the risk factors that are associated with the food that's being served and how that food is cared for. There are 4 different levels. I will say that ranging from $306 for a food license all the way up to $1,600 for a food license. Again, based on risk of possible harm to the individuals. Tobacco kills 500,000 people annually. I would say that the risk of getting these products in the hands of children is pretty stinking high of a risk factor to have. I will also like to remind council that 90% of daily smokers began before the age of 18, and 99% of daily smokers started before the age of 26. We are not saying with a tobacco retail license that the business and sale of tobacco or vaping products cannot occur within the city of Athens. What this does is simply put an enforcement mechanism in place, holding retailers accountable, which is lacking currently at the state level, to make sure that these retailers are not selling to underage individuals. Vaping only establishments in Ohio, as I reminded all of you last week, do not have any type of licensing that they're bound to at this point in time in Ohio. This would close that loophole for that industry and allow the Athens Health Department to be able to conduct enforcement and hold these retailers accountable to selling to young people. As
wanna
well.
Close your comments in just a moment here. Thank
Yes.
you. Okay.
So those are a couple different things. Also from a licensing standpoint, there is the ability to do this locally. And I would encourage the city of Athens to move forward with this evening as we have discussed.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. All right. We'll, and administration, do you have any comments before we turn to audience comments or other elected officials? Okay. And if there are those in the audience who would like to speak, if you could give us your name and address, and I'll have a timer for you for 3 minutes. And let me, and also let me know if you're representing a group.
Okay.
So name, address, and if you're representing a group.
My name is Alex Schwartz. I live at 36 Central, Athens, Ohio. I'm representing Silver Serpent as the general manager. We're like a smoke shop, gift shop kind of deal. I'm not a great public speaker, so I'm just going to kind of stick to the points here. The FDA doesn't do compliance checks for underage sales. It's liquor control, the Ohio Investigative Unit. They come every year and they check to see if we're paying excise tax on all the vapor products we sell. I've been in the vape industry for 15 years. There's not one distributor I've bought from that would sell to me unless I had up-to-date vendor's license, cigarette dealer's license, and some type of FEIN or federal employer identification number. So that's the first thing. As far as enforcement for underage sales, there is a law for underage sales. It's when they switch the law to 21, it includes all alternative tobacco products. That's all nicotine products, essentially, whether it's lozenges, gums, vapes, whatever. It's very clear in the law. As far as regulating, like the vapes themselves, the hardware and stuff, there's a process called the PMTA, Pre-Market Tobacco Application Process. And there's been thousands of products submitted to the FDA for this. And the only products that have gotten moved forward through, it's like 10 different products per year. And they're all products that are owned by giant companies. None of these smaller companies are getting any of their products through. But every single one of these companies has to submit the information of all businesses must submit a list of every product they sell, including its labels and any related advertising, must update that list twice a year. Manufacturers must submit a list of ingredients they use in their product and state the quantity, brand, and any sub-brands. They must submit a detailed documentation of health, toxicological, behavioral, or physiological effects of their products, the constituents, ingredients, additives, and components. A bunch of other ones on here too. It is quite a restrictive process, but regardless of all that, we already have what we need for this. Maybe it's more for, Ohio already considers alternative tobacco products by their law. I've never dealt with a single company that would let me purchase vapor products because of the excise law. Like, you're going to get in trouble if you're buying them and you're not paying tax, if you're not doing what you're supposed to. I'm not inherently against the nature of this law. Like, nobody wants kids being addicted to nicotine or being addicted to drugs or alcohol or anything. But there's a law for that already. It's already against the law to sell to kids under the age of 21, all the way up to tobacco paraphernalia. If I have a tobacco brand on a beach ball, I can't sell it to someone under 21.
You need to close your statements.
That's it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. Someone else who wants to speak? I know there are others, so come on up. If you could give us your name and address, and if you represent a group, thank you.
Hi, my name is Joe Radwinny. I live at 2174 Swart Road, Albany, Ohio. I'm a rapidly nonpartisan, peacetime veteran, constitutional communitarian. Last time I spoke before you all, I think Bill Bias was president, and there was an emergency ordinance they had to pass for Halloween, like Halloween was going to be a surprise. Well, kids vaping is not a surprise. And my daughter, who's now 22, told me stories of that happening on the school bus when she was in middle school. So this is a problem, I agree. It's an issue that needs to be addressed. But to be addressed thoughtfully, with education. So I guess one of the questions I want to ask y'all to really consider is, what is the role of government? What is the role of state government? What's y'all's role as a local government? Thomas Jefferson said, the sum of good governance is one which restrains men from hurting one another, yet shall leave them otherwise free to regulate their own pursuits of industries. In other words, I'm for smaller government, less regulations, less taxes. Now, you've already said, we need to suspend the rules as emergency. And again, like Councilperson Crowell, I agree. It's an issue that ought to be addressed. But to do so in a hurry, in an emergency way, haphazardly, because there are a lot of questions that I haven't heard answered. You want to empower the Athens County Health Department to be an enforcement arm. That's like the COVID police. And I think history will show that a lot of what was going on a couple of years ago, both medically and economically, was not in the best interest of we the people. I recently went there because I had a really bad deer tick. And they said, well, the doctor said, we can't test deer tick in the health department. They said, well, we can't afford to test it, but I'll look at it under the microscope. And they said, well, we can't afford to really test them. But 5 days later, they issued an alert to all of us that deer ticks and Lyme disease is getting prevalent in Athens County. Okay? So, I'm not disagreeing with the intent of this issue. I'm saying it's not an emergency. It does need to be addressed. I can say I'm a tobacco. 17 months ago, I finally quit smoking cigarettes after like 38 years, but I'm still addicted to nicotine. Look, that's not a tobacco product. That's a non-tobacco nicotine thing. My dad chewed Nicorette for the last 20-some years of his life till it killed him of COPD at age 80. I'm going for that extra 10 years.
Okay.
So I would encourage you all to take your time and look at the bigger ramifications rather than rushing legislation through and imposing fees and regulating penalties without better educating yourselves and hearing from business owners.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Aaron Dunham. I work for Silver Serpent LLC, and I help manage the businesses. I'm also an auctioneer, and I do a little bit of DJing on the side. Now, I really have questions. This is the only first city council meeting I've ever been to, and really, what seems to me, all of this, the couple questions I have is at the state level right now. They're talking, and even the city of Columbus have been talking about banning menthol and flavored vapor products. Now, that's happening at a bigger level. Now, my question for you guys is, if it happens and this goes through, does this give you the power to ban menthol flavored vaping products? And, or does it give you an emergent, can you therefore say, hey, this is an emergency, we gotta ban menthol and flavored vaping? And I'm just here to stay on the stand. I mean, that, I used to smoke cigarettes. I haven't felt better since then. I've been smoking vapes for about 2 years and not heavy breathed, or heavy breath, or loss of wind, stuff like that. But that's just the only thing I kind of want to bring to attention is is this a bigger move for, doing something like that. And I just want to hear what each council member has to say, and I want to hear their opinion on that. Like, I moved to Athens about 2 years ago, grew up in Meigs County, so, but Athens is planning on being my home for a long time, and, but, I mean, imposing bans that don't seem like they need to happen, you know, I just want to make sure that doesn't happen, so it's my only concern.
Thanks for the comments. Sarah, you'd have first choice to answer that. I know. Come on up. We're just going to see. But do you have a moment? Do you have a moment to clarify that?
Sure. This legislation doesn't ban the sale of any products. It doesn't set us up to ban the sale of any products. It is creating a process through which retailers that sell tobacco products are licensed, and then those license fees support education about the risk of tobacco and nicotine addiction, and also support the health department in doing compliance checks where they would stop by businesses and do a attempt a sale or a purchase by someone who is under the age of 21.
So that clarifies.
And,
We're not banning.
We're not banning things. It is to license, to check whether or not existing laws are being enforced.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. We'll take another comment now.
Hello, Christy Thomas, 28 Avon Place. First, I'd like to just say that I typed up something so I can stick to the time frame. But I did want to express that I do agree with Councilmember Swink of making sure that everything is completely fair to all the local businesses and everyone is made aware of the ordinance. Similarly, a meeting that I watched happened with the bar associations where there were several complaints, and they all worked together to come up with an agreement to stay compliant with whatever issues that was being addressed. Anyway, reading my letter now, the proposal underscores tobacco as the leading cause of preventable disease in America, and I'm curious to understand the specific statistics relevant to Athens. Do we have statistics on the prevalence of underage tobacco use among youth in Athens? Moreover, what are the documented instances of state violations by Athens businesses? It appears from previous comments that our local retailers are generally compliant, so I'm curious to know if this proposed ordinance is a response to ongoing issues, or if some just do not like what these businesses sell, per previous comments that some would like to see more diverse businesses uptown. Additionally, if our businesses are compliant, then it suggests that youth may be obtaining tobacco products through alternative means similar to alcohol and drugs. Considering the strain on resources, particularly those of the health department, it is worth questioning whether expecting them and other like code enforcement to conduct compliance checks is practical. Reflecting on the challenges faced during the COVID-19 pandemic, perhaps redirecting resources towards educating youth on smoking and vaping, if not already in progress, would be a more impactful use of the health department's capabilities, especially if youth are obtaining tobacco products elsewhere. Education is key. Additionally, I would like to address the restriction on location of tobacco businesses within a 500-foot radius of each other. This measure seems to carry the risk of discrimination against potential businesses and the items they offer for sale. I am prompted to ponder what would come next. Would similar restrictions be applied to other establishments such as fast food restaurants, considering that obesity is the second leading cause of preventable disease? In the pursuit of addressing concerns regarding underage tobacco use, I propose that an emphasis on education may be more effective than imposing strict penalties on businesses. Instead of potentially closing a business after 2 violations within a 3-year period, could resources be allocated to educating our youth about the dangers of smoking and vaping? I'm curious to know if such educational programs are currently implemented in our schools. I appreciate City Council's commitment to public welfare and respectfully request the City Council to thoroughly evaluate the implications of passing this ordinance on our community. As the state already has regulations in place for tobacco retailers, I believe that an emphasis on education, particularly within our schools and youth programs, would align more closely with the concerns of underage tobacco use. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wanting to make a comment?
Hello, my name is Aaron Thomas, reside at 28 Avon Place. That was my wife who came up and spoke previously. I'm not even here for the tobacco issue, but it all goes together. So I prepared a letter, so I won't be here taking up too much time. And full disclosure, I am a member of the Board of Zoning of Appeals Board here in the city of Athens, and my views right now do not reflect those of the Board of Zoning. So I'm here tonight to discuss a few topics before the end of the year. And a lot of this came up because of this tobacco issue. And full disclosure, I don't smoke. I don't drink. Nothing. I don't drink no wine, I don't smoke marijuana, I don't know CBD. None of that. Bar issue, tobacco issue, both are business issues to me. And that's why I'm here. So I sent the letters a few weeks ago to all the council members. 2 people acknowledged them, sent me emails back. The rest did not email me back. So I figured I had to come up here and pay a visit for the end of the year. I would like to thank Councilman McCary and Councilman Swank for the replies addressing my concerns. The reason I sent the email wasn't only to address the recent proposal against for the local vape shops, but the few other things like the new plastic bag ordinance going into effect next year. It goes a little further back how far Texas Roadhouse, Menards, Tim Hortons nearly walked away from all their projects here in Athens due to all the regulations put in front of them, including those of the Shade Tree Committee. We look at all these things that's going on in Athens as far as diversity, but we don't look at how we can bring businesses here. We have spent almost 3 months discussing vape shops in Athens, but I rarely hear anything about how we can get businesses here in Athens. And that's why I'm here. This is becoming a issue of becoming anti-business, which I mentioned in my email here a month ago. Now, we're sitting here discussing the bar issues, the tobacco issues. We look at all the things going on with the zoning issues. But we got to look at a few things, right? 3 national chains nearly walked away from the city of Athens because of a few miscellaneous laws. 3 chains that drew in jobs. 3 chains, when you go by their places, the lines are wrapped around the drive-thrus, their parking lot's full, and Menards is always busy. 3 chains almost walked away because of some of these laws that we're putting in place, becoming anti-business. These things continue to happen. Here we are now looking at how to regulate vape shops. Once again, putting things in front of businesses. These businesses talk to each other. You think these vape shop owners don't want to do other things in town? Why would they want to continue to put money in our area when we're trying to stop them from making money right now? Why would any national chain want to come to Athens when their friends who own another national chain is getting things put in front of them? And that's my point today. We'll look at a couple things. I want to look at what have the city council done in the last 24 months to draw businesses to this area. What has been done? Has the same initiative and same energy put into banning vape shops been put into drawing businesses to town? Has people reached out and did this?
Aaron, you're at 3 minutes.
I'm at, well, listen.
So
listen,
if you can
give me 1 more minute,
summarize.
please.
Okay.
Well, all right, I'm going to summarize it real quick. Today, I set up at the Vernon Wright Building, talking about businesses here for Southeast Ohio. Has anybody been up there and talked to the governor's office besides the mayor? Have anybody been emailing the Department of Development? Have anyone talked to the Director of Development, Lydia Mihalik, in person? Have y'all looked at how we can get funds to draw businesses down here? You want more diverse businesses in Athens? Make it affordable. You compare us to Columbus and Cleveland. You know what Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati is doing for small business? They're giving them grants to put signs on their businesses downtown. What are we doing? I had to wait for my tenant for 3 readings for the city council to get a sign put in front of his business. What are we doing? We're here discussing, let's put more bans on smoking. Let's look at getting some money in this town. I gotta look at, can I afford to live here in 10 years? 10 years. Can I afford to live here in 10 years? Would it be work here? Would it be money here? Will Athens be anti-business? Will anyone want to come here to open a business? This is what we're discussing. It's about money here. I can't be around here if there's no money. I can't raise a family with no job. Take the time, email your Congress, your senator, call the Department of Development and find out how we can get some business down here instead of spending all this energy looking at something the state is going to change next year anyway.
Thanks for your comments. No. I give a little bit of leeway, just like I did to Aaron. I give it to others, but not too much time. Is there somebody else that wants to speak? Yeah.
All the reasonable people have talked. I'm here to talk about what I see to be the hypocrisy. Here are some of the names of Athens citizens who died as a result of alcohol consumption. I would read the names, but you don't give me enough time. 40% of them are underage, half are OU students, 2 are under 16, and 1 was hit by a car at the end of Court Street. I do not know Sarah Grace, but I have met her husband, Judge Grace, who I find to be fair, upstanding, and of tremendous character. Few men earns my esteem to the extent that your husband has, and so with the utmost respect for your family, I challenge her and the rest of you to do the right thing here tonight, by either withdrawing the misguided proposal foisted on us by a paid lobbyist who doesn't even live here, or by joining alcohol and tobacco at the hip to regulate them equally, which will allow you to address both very real, albeit disproportionate problems. After all, at the end of the day, I think everybody just wants to be treated equally. Regulating just our industry so unfairly forces me to ask, how many free passes on underage violations do the bars get? At least 10, maybe 20, if you know the right people? And how many chances do you plan to give other local businesses for essentially the same crime? Or are we to be held to a totally different standard? If this proposal was implemented towards alcohol, nearly 2/3 of businesses on Court Street would be at serious risk of being forcibly shut down at the whim of a city council and its popularity politics. Which is what I think Mr. Swank warned you about the last time we spoke, but I don't think his concerns extend far enough. The sad truth is we all know the legacy of this proposal will be the enabling of selective targeting of small business in a way that is disproportionate, unfair, unconstitutional, and will no doubt lead to disaster for marginalized sections of our community, namely local business, service workers, and minorities. Exactly like when Mayor Patterson and some of you regulated food trucks, leading to the death of several dozen local businesses due to regressive taxation on public spaces. I'm here tonight because you are once again targeting my family, my employees, and others like us. So I proudly hold you accountable for the negative impact your administration has had on small business and your complicity in the death, destruction, and sexual assault which has impacted so many lives in our community. Me and people I love are victims of alcohol-related violence. When my girlfriend was sexually assaulted on New Year's Eve. It's hard to talk about it, but I woke up to her being raped in bed next to me, in my own bed, by a blacked out roommate who was so drunk he came into the wrong room. He was 20 years old, but that didn't stop the uptown bars from over-serving him. And if you don't believe me, ask Detective Bob Filar how many other assault cases like ours you failed to prevent or prosecute. So now I look to Law Director Lisa Eliason and Mayor Steve Patterson and ask them, what have you done to mitigate the death, destruction, and sexual assault brought about by rampant underage drinking in this town? Why have you not proposed solutions to address this problem, and why have you not prosecuted the businesses and individuals who have proven intentional and responsible for blatant, repetitive flaunting of local and state laws? Each one of you here tonight has the opportunity to address all of that and underage tobacco use tonight at the same time. And if you fail to do so, I think you're cowards. I hope this would get used against you one day, because the people are watching and waiting to see what you will do. I will sleep well tonight, like I do every night, knowing that I stood up and did the right thing for my community by speaking and acting the truth. Will you be able to say the same for yourself? I hope so.
Thank you.
I mainly got up to make off the hand remarks.
Okay, and Dave, it's David Whaley, correct?
David
You want to
Whaley.
give us your
I live at
address?
4 West Hills Drive in Athens, and I live at the 1st Ward. Precinct 2. I just wanted to say my brother started smoking at 18, I guess. And he was a cab driver up in Ann Arbor for 30 years. And he almost died of COPD when he was 54. And, you know, they were talking, you know, that they would revive I don't even remember the guy's name, other than he's a Republican. But they wouldn't revive him. They took him off the machine and he moved his toes and he lived. But yeah, underage smoking is a serious thing, and I agree with Alan Swank about that, but I agree more with Sarah Grace on this topic of regulating tobacco in this town. Okay, I'm done. I might be up to talk about another topic.
Thanks, Mr. Whaley. Okay. Is there anybody else wanting to speak? Okay. So, yes. Rob.
I'm Rob Delac, live on Morris Avenue here in the city of Athens. So I like to say that I'm a cheerleader for the city when it's doing the right thing. And I think this is one of those examples. So I want to encourage City Council to adopt this legislation. It's common sense legislation. It's well vetted. We've heard from a number of sources, 25 cities already passed almost the identical legislation that we're passing, could be passing tonight. And maybe even another one is passing tonight as well in Gahana. This makes perfect sense. While it is another item for that businesses will have to deal with, it's certainly something that we need to do locally to make sure that they're compliant with the law. And one of the individuals tonight mentioned that there are checks going on. Yeah, well, last week we heard there were 14 or 15 checks in the last couple of years. I forget how many years now, I forget the numbers. In the last 5 years.
The FDA doesn't.
In the last, please, you're not allowed to talk right now.
I understand.
So, within the last 5 years, there's been 14 or 15 checks. That's not an acceptable level of government oversight on this issue. It's a very important health issue for this country, for the city, and for our youth. Please pass it tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thanks.
If he got him vote, does he get to speak again? Just wondering.
Pardon me?
He tried to respond to his statements being in votes. Does he get to respond to that?
No, we're just making public comments, and somebody else is waiting to make a comment.
Hi, my name's Ella Collins, 42 South Court Street, and I'm not really representing, but I work at Puff for Tobacco, LLC. And I would just like to, my public speaking so bad, I'm so sorry. But I would just like to point out, like what these gentlemen said, we're not really allowed to sell anything, like by law. The only thing I'm allowed to sell a minor is like a soda or a water, that's it. And I think this issue goes a lot deeper with the rise of like really real kind of fake IDs, which is not our fault, like scannable fake IDs. And I think nobody more than us wants to see, like, no, I'm so sorry. We don't want any underage people to smoke. I think we can all agree with that. I think we all agree that no underage people should be smoking. But it's very hard to regulate that, and I feel like there's already laws in place that make us so that we can't do that. I'm sorry, am I speaking so bad? But that's kind of all I wanted to say. And also with the bars, we see online every day so many minors going into bars, and nothing like that is regulated at all. They can just go in whenever they want, and I feel that we are getting more targeted than the bars. But I agree with Councilmember Swank that I feel that this is a rushed legislature, and
yeah, that's just kind of all I have to say. Is I feel like it's a deeper issue that maybe needs to take more time to read more about, and the laws that have already been set in place. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from audience members? If you've got additional pieces of information, let's try and limit it to a minute.
So just a couple things. First, from the Ohio Investigative Unit checks that are done. First of all, FDA checks, right? There's only been a few in the past 5 years. I'd be interested to know, or to let everybody know, that under current Ohio law, when the Ohio Investigative Unit does have a violation, that violation is then placed upon the clerk that sold that product to the underage buyer. It does not go on the retailer. Retailers go off scot-free. It's the clerk that would get the misdemeanor charge and the financial penalty for selling that product to that underage individual. So I just want to clarify that, and I'm not even sure that the clerks here are aware of it. So the retailers go off scot-free. This piece of legislation would be holding those retailers accountable for not just to make sure their clerks are educated about how to check IDs properly and what that looks like. And also this piece of legislation would add education and prevention through the retailer fees that are going to be paid to the health department for the compliance checks. And then also that would go into cessation and prevention efforts at the local schools and within Athens community specifically. So I just want to make sure that that's clear for council members to know. Also,
you need to summarize
that.
that
Is it. If I also brought sample products if people are interested in knowing the difference between what we have seen as combustible products and as vapor products as well. So
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you. All right. And you're wanting to speak about this topic?
No. Well, I want to just ask a quick question. This isn't my turn to speak.
Okay.
I mean, I'm going to speak.
Are you asking a question about this piece of legislation?
Maybe I missed this part. Did anyone ever say where she's from or what?
Yeah, this is the fourth meeting we've had about this, and so she has identified herself. But if you,
I'd be happy. Yes, I'm Wendy Hyde. I'm with the Preventing Tobacco Addiction Foundation, Tobacco 21. We are an organization that works within the state of Ohio, but also nationally, to help cities and states pass effective tobacco enforcement laws.
Are you paid for that role?
Are you being paid to be here?
I am not being paid to be here.
But do you have a job with them, or you just do this like this is your cause?
we need to bring this. We need to bring this to order now. It's our piece of legislation that we're considering. Yeah, and your point is well taken, so thank you for identifying yourself, Wendy, tonight, and thanks for asking the question. We should have reintroduced her. All right, we've had a motion and second to approve. We've heard the discussion. We've heard public comments, so I'm now going to call the vote. All those in favor?
Point of order.
Yes.
Now that we have heard from the public, I think it would be appropriate to make the following motion. I move that we table 140-23.
I don't hear a second.
Second.
Okay, so you're moving this motion and second to table. And let me make sure I have mine correct. And so we do have a motion and second. Is there anybody that wants to raise discussion about this before we have the vote? Councilmember McCary.
Thank you. I'll be brief since we've been on this topic, this important topic for some time. I am thinking about what's been shared tonight and for the past several weeks that has been true, and I believe that we have seen a lot of factual information about the risk of health here. I believe that one thing that we haven't seen previously at the end of year when we've had this kind of legislation introduced, it can feel rushed from the perspective of the citizenry, although it has been receiving a lot of input and research for months. But I have not been in a situation previously where I've had a council member, as Councilmember Swank has done, commit as a committee chair to making sure that this would come back to our agenda first thing in January in the new year under a different council. So I'd like to ask a point of clarity as to whether that is something that we can count on, or if that is not something that we can just sort of take on good faith.
Well, since I made the statement, I think it would be appropriate for me to answer that question. My thought is simply this. If this legislation is good enough at this point in time for 6 members of council to vote to suspend the rules and to get this close to voting on it, we will not have to start over at square one in January. We can start where we are and get it fine-tuned that little bit, that when that car goes down East State Street, you don't hear the engine knock. We will not have to start over at square one. Procedurally, yes, we will. It will have to go to committee, 3 readings, which means this could very well pass in February. If this legislation is that good, that's 6 of us, think it's good enough to suspend the rules and almost vote on it, then we can start at that point in February, or in January. We meet on the 2nd and take this thing across the finish line in a form that, number one, discourages and decreases teen smoking and allows businesses to operate in a responsible manner, free from intrusive overreach by a government body.
Okay.
So did that
So
answer
we
your
have-
question, Councilman McCary? It's kind of like the Boy Scout oath. I mean, you just got to take my word, and I will bring that up. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Thank you, Councilmember Swank, and I'll just say that if that does happen, then I do believe that the work that Councilmember Grace has put into this will be evident and recognized as we finalize whatever the ultimate version is.
So we have a motion and second to table this item. Are there any other comments that council members want to make before we vote on tabling? Okay. All those in favor of tabling this ordinance signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Okay, 6-1. All right, so the ordinance is tabled for further discussion then in the new year. Thank you all. And if you all are wanting a moment to, if you want to stay, you're welcome. But we have more, we have more business. If anybody's wanting to leave this moment, let's take 10 seconds, 15 seconds for you to go ahead and leave. Thanks for being here.
Treasury.
Our next ordinance is 14423. This is an ordinance authorized, could somebody, Scott, could you close the chamber doors? Thank you. Ordinance 14423 is an ordinance authorizing the Athens City Shade Tree Commission in collaboration with Ohio University to submit an application and enter into an agreement with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, the USDA Forest Service, for participation in the Urban Forestry Grant Program and declaring an emergency. And this is introduced by Councilmember Ziff.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for ordinance 144-23.
Second.
Thank you. This is for the purpose of actually getting this through, as this is our last meeting and it is a second reading for a grant for trees, which I think anyone would agree with is pretty hard to become divisive.
Okay, and so what we're doing is we're suspending because you have a grant application that's due yet this year.
Yes.
A grant application yet this year. Okay, so the motion and second to suspend. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended, Councilmember Ziff.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to move that we approve ordinance 144-23.
Second.
Okay. And you want want to give us any more little information about it?
I mean, sure, yeah, it's
Just a
pretty
little
great.
bit.
Yeah, just, I mean, if
summarize.
people weren't here last week, which I see a lot of people here that weren't here last week, or if you weren't watching live on the internet, this is for us to get a grant to work with Ohio University to help build what was the term, Mr. Duo? It was an edible forest?
Food
Is that
forest.
Food forest, edible forest. You can't eat the tree itself. A food forest. This is not Keebler land. But this is just to get a large grant for us we don't have to pitch in anything. It's completely free for the city of Athens. It's just free money for cool trees, and in conjunction with Ohio University, they'd be studying, because we're getting our climate zone adjusted here to see what kind of plants would thrive and grow and do well where we live. It's pretty cool. Yeah, there's Ben's moment of levity.
So we have a motion and second for approval. Do we have any comments or questions from council members, administration, or other elected officials, or our audience members? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We now have an ordinance for first reading, and this is 14523, an ordinance amending Ordinance 14123, authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into contract for construction of the new fire headquarters. This is project number 346, and declaring an emergency, and introduced by Councilmember McCary.
Thank you, President Nisley. Do we need to begin with the emergency?
We need to
suspension?
suspend
Okay.
first.
And I move that
on all these.
we suspend the rules in order to adopt ordinance 145-23.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and second, and the reason for this being that we need to take care of the financial matters for the construction before the end of the year. Motion and second for suspending. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the rules have been suspended. We can go on to.
Okay. Thank you, President Nisley. I would like to make a motion that we adopt ordinance 145-23.
Second.
As President Nisley just indicated, this has just been not about changing the plans or the total cost, just about our financial allocations, and we are needing to reconcile all of that before the end of this fiscal year.
Okay. Do we have any comments or questions from council members? Yes, Councilmember Spielness.
Yes, thank you. So I'm just curious about, it says $4 million to the fire station fund for transfer. And then, so can you explain a little bit about what that means for the audience?
And I believe Auditor Hecht may have the most succinct summary for us, and she can describe what happened during the ARPA. I think we borrowed some ARPA money, and we're needing to make the transfers back. Yeah.
Basically, this is a little bit complicated, but to answer your question, if we want to transfer money from one fund to another, we have to appropriate it in the fund that we're transferring it to. What has happened with this $4 million, as you all know, we borrowed $9 million. By the time we got around to trying to get started, it wasn't enough money. We had passed legislation to use some ARPA money and some general fund money to make up that $4 million that we thought we needed. And then when it came down to it, we decided to borrow $4 million instead of burning down our general fund money, for one thing. And so we are changing all that now with the ordinances, and it's been changed and amended, but we're trying to clear that up in our books so that we can show the money as being from the bond issue and not from the other funds, and to get that other money back into those funds, because we moved them into the fund we were going to pay for the fire station out of. That help?
So it's tracking it. It's making sure that it's in the proper accounts before our auditors come in to audit the books, and so it is where it belongs.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Auditor Hecht, I understand we don't enter these kind of projects all that frequently with bonds and other complications, but is there any advice moving forward that you'd have for helping us prevent some of the complications in financing that we've encountered with our fire station?
Well, in my 20 years, I've never seen us have to do anything like this. And I think we all know the inflation during COVID and building materials and things like that put us in that really awkward and expensive situation that we had to deal with that. I don't know that we can do anything to avoid that in the future. However, hopefully whoever comes after me will, be able to pay attention and maybe make our ordinances, make it a little more clear to council what we're trying to do when we're moving money back after we decided to borrow money and put in there.
That's helpful. Thank you.
And hopefully we never go through
Pandemic again.
inflation and rising construction costs, plus Service Safety Director Stone and the rest of the city administration trying to meet construction deadlines within the timing framing. And that's what we were trying to accomplish and doing this in an economical way. So thanks for getting
Thanks
it
to
moving
everyone
along.
who's gotten that building as
Yep.
built as it is so far. Thanks.
All right, we have a motion and second for approval. Any other comments or questions from council members, other elected officials, administration, or audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We now have a resolution for third reading. This is 1123, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor, and is introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to approve R 1123.
Second.
Thank you, Member Eisner. As mentioned, this does set the millage for Athens Township and Canaan Township. Athens Township at 2.6 mils and Canaan Township at 2.4 mils, as recommended as the title indicates from the Budget Commission of Athens County. Thank you, President Isley.
Thank you. Can we have a motion and second for approval of 1123? Any comments or questions from council members, administration, other elected officials, or our audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and this resolution is approved. It's a little bit different order tonight, but we have announcements and other business. And this is, as we noted earlier in the evening, the last meeting, we think, of this year for the city council. So we do, as part of that, then have a motion to remove from the table Ordinance 9323. And this is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 9, General Regulations, Chapter 9.05, Fire Control, Petroleum Liquids, Section 9.05.99, Penalties. And so I believe Councilmember Carey, you do have a motion then to bring that, to remove it from the table.
Yes, thank you, President Isley. I'd like to move that we remove Ordinance 93-23 from the table to allow for some additional formal discussion, sharing of updates, consideration of amendments, and possible suspension of the rules.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second, and this is one of our motions in our rules of council where no debate is permitted. So we have a motion and second to remove it from the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion has been removed.
Thank you, President Isley.
Or
And
that
to-
ordinance has
Sorry,
been
yes.
removed.
Thank you, President Isley, for creating the space for us to continue this important discussion. This has been an important safety item that's been brought before the City and Safety Services Committee that I chair, and I'll continue to chair that committee into the new term. So it's something that I hope to follow and work closely on with our administration, responding to some of the concerns of fire safety violations that we've heard from our fire staff and our City and Safety Services Director. Our ultimate goal in these discussions has been to understand why these violations are happening with overcrowding and occupancy concerns, and to encourage increased dialogue between our bar owners or managers and our city administration to determine what kind of training practices or other incentives can help us reduce these kinds of safety issues. We have heard from a number of speakers over the last couple of months, especially if those of you at home have not found that our City Council's website is very user-friendly in terms of just searching for the keyword fire, and it will pull up the video moments where each time we've discussed overcrowding or such, you can find that. And I would point you specifically to our October 2nd and October 9th meetings, and point out that this legislation, the idea of making penalties more severe, is not unique to Athens, that we have heard of other small college towns that face these kinds of challenges and issues. And I'm hoping this evening just to hear some updates from our city administration before opening it up to concerns from council members who might have questions and audience members. It's my understanding that we have seen an increase in violations since I last requested an update monitoring October, where we know we have some busy times with homecoming and Halloween here. It's my understanding that there had been, from the administration's perspective, some movement on improving that dialogue between tavern owners and the administration, but that seemed to have stalled, at least from the perspective of city administration being involved in those conversations and meetings. And we've also received at least a few more violations recently. So with that, I'll pause and again suggest that we take time for questions from committee members, council members, administration, and then the public.
And Councilmember McCary, I think, yes, so in our process, in our order tonight, since this is the last, just so everybody understands it, me included, since this is our last meeting and you've removed it from the table, then your goal here tonight is to amend, suspend, and approve some form of this ordinance. And so what we need before we start the discussion is a motion to amend, and then we can open it up for the comments, questions, and
Absolutely, thank you. Yes, there is one major amendment under consideration that I've suggested at this point, and that is focusing on the increasing penalties in section B of 9.05.99, and I will read that section B indicates any person who shall violate section 9.05.08 of Athens City Code on a first offense shall be deemed guilty of a minor misdemeanor and fined not more than $150. A second offense with a 2-year period shall be deemed a misdemeanor of the 4th degree, punishable by not more than 30 days in jail, and a fine of not more than $250. A third offense with a 2-year period shall be deemed a misdemeanor of the 3rd degree, punishable by not more than 60 days in jail, a fine of not more than $500, and a fourth offense within a 2-year period shall be deemed a misdemeanor of the 2nd degree, punishable by not more than 90 days in jail, and a fine of not more than $750. Each time a violation occurs shall constitute a separate and complete offense.
And that's how it currently reads.
That is the current wording, and I am open to additional recommendations for amendments, but that is the amendment.
No, that's.
I'm sorry.
the amendment.
I'm sorry.
So the amendment removes
The jail time is the main difference.
So that's what you're making the amendment to open it up for discussion, removing the jail time, but keeping the fines. Okay, so
Is there a copy of that amendment?
a copy of the amendment.
I haven't seen it.
It's emailed.
It was emailed to council. Okay.
Perhaps Member McCary wants to read the amendment.
If you have the hard, I don't think he has it open.
I remember seeing one. So they plan to, but I didn't see them. I didn't see the attachment with it.
Okay, and we don't have it here, but what it's doing is taking out of section 1B any of the references to
I think
the
I have it here.
jail time. Do you? Okay.
Okay. Should I read?
Does the clerk have it? Yeah, here it is.
She does
And I
have it. She's
also.
got it. There it
For
is.
official.
Okay. So this would be the amended
language?
paragraph B.
Okay, amended paragraph B language. Any person who violates section 9.05.08 of Athens City Code on a first offense shall be deemed guilty of a minor misdemeanor and be fined not more than $150. An offender who within 2 years has previously been convicted of or pleaded guilty of a violation of 9.05.08 shall be deemed guilty of an unclassified misdemeanor and be fined $250 on a second offense, $500 on a third offense, $750 on a fourth offense, and $1,000 for any subsequent offenses. Each time a violation occurs shall constitute a separate and complete offense. So apologies for the
that's
error.
okay.
The clarification is that the biggest change reflected in this amendment is the elimination of jail time.
Okay, so we have a motion and.
Wait.
Wait.
What about A? It says not more than 30 days in jail.
That's a different section.
So we're gonna
This is
keep it
only
there?
9.05.08.
I hear that, but is that what you want?
That other section deals with things like gasoline at gas stations and places like that, nothing to do with bars whatsoever.
Okay.
That's why it says petroleum in the thing.
Yeah.
I'll
So-
second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and second for amending this to remove jail time as read by Councilmember McCary. And we will now open it up for discussion, for comments amongst council members first, and administration, and then audience members to make a comment. Yes, Councilmember Swank.
A very simple question, which the answer may lead to an additional suggested amendment. Any person, go way back, makes sense, go back when Swanky's was in town here, back in the 80s. And we have this violation at Swanky's. Who is the person who gets the minor misdemeanor, assuming that they're guilty? Who is that person?
Thank you, Councilmember Swank. That is a question I've been looking into, and it is my understanding, although not popular in everyone's opinion, that it would be the bar owner that would be held responsible for this misdemeanor. And that has been reached through consideration of the fact that it is sometimes quite difficult to identify a manager, or in some cases more than one manager, who would be responsible for an overcrowding issue at a bar.
Okay. The reason I asked that question, how do I put this? My dad was a Kroger manager for 38 years, back in the 50s and 60s. And we would often go on vacation in late August for two weeks, camping. No cell phone, no contact with Kroger whatsoever. In other words, he trained his staff to run the place, and they could do it. I would assume there are some people in the same situation here, independent business owners. And they're away for 2 weeks, and they've had a comprehensive training program. In fact, I used to help train the folks at Skipper's years ago. And while they're away, there's a violation. Just as my dad came back to work, one of these folks would come back to work, and now they're faced with a misdemeanor. Any thoughts on not only striking the jail time, but also the fact that it's a misdemeanor and simply leaving in place the monetary fine? And if it's deemed that that monetary fine, as it now reads, is not a large enough deterrent, then jacking those up so that it gets somebody's attention.
Well, if you make it administrative, then you'll have to have an appeals process. Right now, your appeals process is, your due process is that you're cited into court on a minor misdemeanor or an unclassified misdemeanor. Those are criminal offenses, and you have to prove them beyond a reasonable doubt. The prosecution would have to prove those offenses beyond a reasonable doubt. If you make it a civil penalty, then you have to come up with some appeals process if someone wants to challenge the fact that they received that penalty.
Similar to that appeals process that we had in the tobacco thing earlier.
Could be.
Yeah, I'm not saying A to B, but in a process.
Well, we have a process in place too for an administrative fine on noise violations and also on nuisance parties. And if you have a subsequent offense, it turns into something more than just administrative. But if you want to appeal it, you can also ask to have a misdemeanor citation issued into court.
Yeah.
So there are other ways to do this. Right now, it's a minor misdemeanor. And the most you can ever get on a minor misdemeanor is a $150 fine. So in here, by upping the penalties, it's an unclassified misdemeanor, and it has no jail time whatsoever. But if you get the citation and you don't believe you should have had it, you can go to court and the city has to prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Are there monetary limits on civil?
There
So we
wouldn't
could
be,
make it,
no.
we could make it $1,000 if we wanted. Hypothetically speaking.
Hypothetically, I don't know that that would.
Okay.
would
So I throw
happen.
that out for the chair of the committee, member McCary, consideration, because he is bringing this forward, and just, does that make sense? It's just a tough one. No matter how good the training program is in a business, somebody's going to make a mistake sometime. And people don't wake up in the morning and say, you know what, this is a great day to screw up. We all make mistakes. Now, if you're doing it 3 or 4 times, yeah, I don't know about that. But, yeah, it's just for your consideration.
Thank you. So if I understand that correctly, it's an additional amendment that you'd be suggesting. Is that correct, Councilmember
I'd
Swink?
love to hear people, how do we handle that?
Can
Do I have
we,
to make it?
can we hear some
Yeah.
comments first, and then we'll reach a decision on that? Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. Thank you, Member McCary, for working on this. If I understand correctly, we are considering multiple amendments, which would put this back to first reading. And so if we were to approve this tonight, we would be at first reading, we would suspend the rules, and we would pass it tonight.
That's correct.
I am concerned with that timetable. And I think it's fine to continue debating these issues, but I, for one, would not want to rush to judgment on this. It seems like we still have a lot of questions. Thank you, President Isley.
Okay. Comments? Yes, Councilmember Ziff.
Thank you, President Eisen. I'd like to echo what Councilmember Crowell, his words there. I am fairly uncomfortable with the idea of bringing this back after not talking about it for a month, making a lot of big changes, and then pushing it through tonight. That's, for me, I think that's way too fast. I don't see anything that's especially pressing about this issue. I as well would be in favor of not moving forward with this tonight. This is too rushed. This is just too, it's too rushed.
Councilmember Spielness.
Yes, I would agree with that. I did get some questions from a constituent about this issue and what happened to it and what's going on with it. And I first said, I don't know, because it was before we got some emails and whatnot. And the comment was, well, the bar owners were hoping to get more, feedback or input into this. And so I agree that it's not an emergency. I think we can hold off.
So am I hearing that perhaps someone wants to move to lay it on the table?
I would make a motion to table this ordinance.
Would that allow for continued discussion and updates from administration this evening?
Fair point.
Yeah, we should get comments from the administration
Can I
first before we,
can I
yeah, we
withdraw
can
my
withdraw
motion?
a motion to the table, and let's get comments first from administration.
Yes, either City Safety Services Director Stone or Mayor Patterson, if you'd like to comment on any increases in concerns or progress on the communication with the Bar and Tavern Association.
Yes, Mayor Patterson.
I'll begin, and then Service Safety Director wants to chime in with any communications that he may have had. If you remember, during the city council meeting, I don't remember whether it was the 3rd or the 9th or whichever meeting it was in October, one of the things that I had mentioned to the large number of owners who were here that evening is to re-engage through some type of bar owners association. Apparently it's now the Tavern Owners Association. I was visited by 2 separate bar owners or managers between that meeting and the present, and then this afternoon I received a text indicating that the Tavern Owners Association met today. I was a little dismayed, although at least they're meeting, I guess, because one of the comments that I had made during those individual meetings and at council was to have both chiefs and myself at those meetings. So I would say that the upside is that at least this group has met with a significant number of owners, at least those who were available, or managers, or whomever from the industry, and am going to continue to press that in future meetings with the Tavern Owners Association, that both chiefs and myself are in those meetings so that everyone is reading from the same sheet of music as we move forward in time. So I guess my main point of that communication to all of you as council is that the group is meeting. Today they met. So I will continue to press that the administration is part of those communications as it moves forward to make sure that everyone is understanding each other.
Thank you, Mayor Patterson. I think that also brings home the point that we are interested in having this as an ongoing dialogue focused on community safety, and what we've presented have been a number of incentives for compliance that is intended to result in a lower number of violations. So if we do hear about those numbers improving, then I believe that's a sign that we're on the right track, as long as we are in communication between tavern owners associations and the mayor. But as I mentioned previously, this is a matter that City and Safety Services Committee will continue to follow. And I wonder if there are comments from the public.
And Service Safety Directors.
Director Stone? Okay.
The only thing I would add to the mayor's commentary is that just a couple points of clarification. Number one, ACC 9.05.08 specifically is compliance with orders. And so if you were to read what you're debating, it says, no person shall willfully fail or refuse to comply with any lawful order or direction from a fire official or to interfere with the compliance attempts of another individual. And so, specific to the issue at hand, which is overcrowding, I think we should be careful as we go forward in what we are, what we are modifying the penalties for. So, certainly in the overcrowding area, that's maybe one issue, but there may be another instance where a fire official would give an order on something where compliance is something that we absolutely would want to have in place. So, as we're amending the penalty section, I think I'd advise the council to keep that in mind. Secondly, I have been contacted by at least one owner who's brought several issues to my attention. One of the things I think that your discussion has done is it has kind of shone a light on the issue and got people talking about it. And so, I do think compliance is better. Number one. Number two, the single biggest thing that we can do to provide for fire safety in assembly halls specifically, or those types of uses, is fire suppression systems in the building. And I know at least one establishment, since discussion of this topic, has begun installation of a fire suppression system. And so I think that's a positive direction. The last thing that I would note as we debate this is the fire officials are attempting to enforce the building code, the commercial building code of the state of Ohio, as they interact with folks. One of the considerations for occupancy is life safety. There are other considerations that set occupancy limits for buildings. And depending upon when you have your building plans approved by the Ohio Department of Commerce, determines under what part of the state code or what year of the state commercial building code that you're being held to. More recently, one of the things that has limited occupancy in buildings is the number of toilet fixtures inside bathrooms. And so in many cases, there may be a assembly space of the same size, but one can have more people, same size and number of entrances, which is your life safety issues, but that can have a higher occupancy because of a higher number of toilet fixtures in that particular building versus absence. So it's not entirely based on fire safety, your building occupancy, and that's some of the nuances of the code. And I am by no means an expert on that. I would encourage the body to speak with an architect on that. So I guess the takeaway is that while I do believe compliance is important, and the city fire officials will continue to enforce the standards as they see fit, going forward. I'm not going to come here and tell you today you really absolutely have to pass this, or else something terrible is going to happen, because I think that there is some improvement that's happening out there in the community.
Thank you, Director Stone.
So we had thank you, and for the additional information. So Councilmember Ziff, you'd made a motion to lay this on the table. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. And any other comments from council members about laying this on the table with the point of bringing this forward, as the mayor is mentioning, as he asked the first time, that the Tavern Owners Association meets with city administration It doesn't do us any good if we're not communicating. So that would be the caveat on it, but we do have and so that's my comment I'll add to the discussion on laying on the table. So any other comments from other council members? Councilmember McCary?
More of a question, just to, now that we have the motion and the second for laying this on the table, is there still an opportunity for any public commentary tonight?
There is. The motion is to lay it on the table.
Okay.
We're not debating the whole issue tonight.
Yes.
I mean, that's for the subsequent meetings between the Tavern Owners Association and city administration and the chair of the Service Safety Committee, Councilmember McCary. So is there anybody wanting to make a comment on laying it on the table? Yes.
Daniel DeLuca, 14 Roxbury Drive. Appreciate you guys for taking the time to hear us and talk about laying it on the table. We really appreciate you guys listening to us. I want to talk about our meetings. Our meetings are, we're trying to figure out our rules on what we're going to have as far as membership, who's actually showing up and who wants to be a part of it. We haven't decided anything as far as affecting the city and like bring everybody in yet. Like we want to set up our own, like, who's going to be the members of the Uptown, like which bars want to participate, what the guidelines are for us, so then we can be a body to talk to you guys, because we don't want to not have our rules established and just be a group of loose people talking in a circle. It would be better for us to have everyone together so we all know who's participating, what if we're doing some kind of, we're talking about a possible fee for members. Those are things that we want to talk about that have nothing to do with the issue at hand. That's what we've been meeting about. It's not about this per se, but we want the mayor there. We want Reimer there. We want the police there. We want everyone to be there when we have our first official, after we've agreed to terms on what it is to actually be the Tavern Association, because there has to be a governing body essentially, or a organization, not just us all meeting in a room. So once we have those, then we can meet as an official meeting. We want the mayor there. We want Reimer there. We want any council members to be there so that we can all have a discussion on that. So that's just kind of the update on where we're at.
So do you have any kind of time commitment, just as Councilmember Swank committed to addressing that other ordinance within the first month?
We'll have it set up, established? Is that what you mean as far as that time?
When you're ready to have us join you in the discussion.
Right. So we met today and we discussed a lot of things on exactly what we want as far as that. It seems like over this next couple of weeks, we're going to meet again and probably finalize everything. So by the time we're thinking, once January starts. So
that's fair
by the time the second semester, I think we should have everything ironed out by the time the second semester starts. So it was just the semester is our busiest time. November is our busiest time, and so for all of us to come together, it's hard. Now we have the break, so these next couple of weeks we can actually finalize everything. Meet in January, so it should be by the time we do our second semester starts, we should have everything finalized to have our official first meeting with everybody.
Great.
Thanks for the update.
Thanks.
Yeah,
We'll look
that's
forward
it.
to it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Okay, so any other comments on only the motion to lay on the table? Okay, we're ready for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries, and this ordinance has been laid on the table for further discussion next year. We have more business. I don't know if you want to still join us, but I will give everybody 30 seconds if you're wanting to leave before the end of the meeting. We do. So if you're wanting to make other comments, you may stay, but the others may not want to.
Excuse me.
Okay. All right.
Thank you all for all your service.
All right. Thanks for
I
joining.
don't envy your job.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Okay. We'll now move on to appointments, and the one that we have tonight is an appointment to the Affordable Housing Commission. Councilmember Grace.
Thank you, President Isley. I actually have two. And an individual by the name of Mr. Shea Myers has provided me with a statement that I will share here. Mr. Myers is an architect, builder, and co-owner of Solstice Design Studio, an architecture firm specializing in sustainable residential architecture. He relocated to Athens from Salt Lake City, Utah in May of 2022 and has dealt with housing issue in one form or another for many years as a building professional, a renter, and as of a few months ago, a homeowner. His professional experience includes a range of market rate and affordable housing developments with a focus on the missing middle housing. This includes projects such as a 27-unit net zero energy workforce housing project in collaboration with the Habitat for Humanity, as well as multiple micro-housing and prefabricated projects. So that is a little bit of information about Shay Myers. And then Maria Modale has been a renter in Athens since the fall of 2011 when she moved to Ohio University for her graduate degree, or graduate education. She currently works at Ohio University College of Medicine and has several roles at the university. Through the years, she worked for COVID epidemiology, experiential learning, diversity, and inclusion, to name a few. Maria serves on the board of NAMI Athens as the vice president and is a board member for the Athens County Convention and Visitors Bureau. She has previously served as chair of the Joint Police Advisory Council. Her interest in the Affordable Housing Commission stems from her experiences as a renter in Athens, both as a graduate student and as a young professional. So both of these individuals have indicated to me their desire to serve on the Affordable Housing Commission, and so I would like to make a motion that council accept their generous offer of volunteerism.
Okay.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
So we have a motion and second for approval of 2 appointees to the Affordable Housing Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, and we'll welcome their service. Next 2 points of business, I would entertain a motion to accept the November 2023 financial reports.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And then a motion to accept the November 2023 credit card transactions.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, thank you. A motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now, we do have an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services that were not on the agenda. So if it's a new topic that we've not talked about tonight, Mr. Whaley, are you wanting to speak? And you would have 3 minutes. And we have your name and address from before.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is off the cuff again. There is a serious problem in this city with deer. And I suggest to the council that they hire a professional bow hunter to kill off some of the excess deer that live within the city limits. A neighbor of mine that lives on First Street said that she counted 17 deer in the cemetery. 17 deer. I myself have seen 3 bucks by Siegfried Hall. 3 big, huge bucks by City Hall. We need to get rid of some deer. And I'm very critical of a person that I know puts out corn for deer to eat. So I suggest to the council that they take up the idea of hiring a professional bow hunter to get rid of the pestilence of deer on the west end of Athens, Ohio. And all of the city of Athens, if you see them at Siegfried Hall, a couple of years ago, maybe 8, the deer crashed through jumped through the window of the Alden Library, broke the window there. So we need to, I'm sorry to any Bambi lovers in the town, but we need to take this issue seriously. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Whaley. And I think Councilmember Spelness, you were looking into some regulations earlier, not to get into a long discussion, but I know you've been doing some research on it.
I had done a fair amount of contacting other communities, looking at what's out there. and talking to the health department, et cetera. And the health department was in favor of creating an ordinance that would penalize anyone who is feeding the deer for a variety of different reasons, disease, accidents, et cetera, et cetera. But I brought it up to the West Side Community Association, and their attitude was, it's too hard to enforce. It's just, it wouldn't really make a lot of sense. And I called one community that had an ordinance, and I talked to a police officer who I was assigned to in this call, and I explained, how's that working? And she had no idea there was such an ordinance.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I felt rather discouraged, and I'm not sure what the best solution is going forward, but it is definitely a problem, and I appreciate you raising it.
And I know we have some regulations on bow hunting, correct? Service Safety Director Stone, and maybe that might help the public if they knew what's allowed, what's not.
Sure. Thank you, President Isley. So hunting is permitted in the city of Athens with the permission of the landowner on private property via bow. You may not discharge a firearm inside the city of Athens, so you may not hunt during gun season, whether it be regular gun season or black powder, but you may hunt with a bow inside the city of Athens on private property with the permission of the owner of that property.
Okay.
So it's not a lot of large parcels that are privately owned where that permission can be granted. There are a couple where currently that does occur.
Thanks.
We
Thanks for
have,
clarifying.
I'm sorry, just to further, we have had some discussion about a lottery system similar to what Metro Parks do for publicly owned property inside the city to allow for an expansion of bow hunting in order to just, help curb the population inside the city limits. We've never acted on that. But that would be a way to attempt to curb the population a little bit on publicly owned property. But I would not be in support of any kind of gun hunting inside the city limits.
Okay, so something for the new year. Thanks, Mr. Whaley, for bringing it up. And do we have another comment? Yes, from another citizen, an opportunity to speak? Okay. If you could give us your name and
Yes,
address.
Thank you. My
and,
name is Richard Zielinski, 24 Avon Place.
Okay.
Right down the street from Christy and Aaron. This has been a long night, I know. I'm exhausted just from sitting here. So I almost apologize that I'm taking even more of your time at the very end here, but I'll try hopefully to say something helpful that'll be worth staying a few minutes more for. It's about the trash. It's about the Rumpke and the Athens hockey recycling, but hopefully I'm going to say something that you haven't heard before, hopefully, or at least heard in the same way. Oh, okay. First of all, let me say I think of myself as like a practical idealist and maybe like a somewhat fiscally responsible progressive. So sometimes those ideas sort of conflict with each other at times, and sometimes I say things that get people on all sides mad at me, which might happen in a couple minutes or in 1 minute. But I also find that sometimes, not all the time, sometimes when that happens, it means you might be on the right track. Maybe. So we'll see. And also, real quick, when you hear point number 1, you'll think, oh my God, no, 100 people have already said this. But once we get past point number 1, I hope you'll hear something helpful. Point number 1, I don't want Rumpke. I don't want Rumpke. Okay, that's only point number 1, though. And along with that, in order, it's like adding insult to injury almost. The trash cans and the recycling can that have Rumpke's name on them, we will have to have them in our backyards. Every time I go in my backyard, I'll have to see Rumpke's name Okay. There's something like almost wrong about that. But okay, that's only point number one. Point number two. Oh, also.
And you're actually at 23 seconds, so if you can summarize your points, that would be
I
great.
have only 23 seconds left?
Now you've got 16 seconds left. So, but we'll give you a little bit of
I'm sorry.
lenience. That's okay. You have several points to
I didn't
make.
practice this at home. All right, point two. Well, the two main points. In the ballpark, and time is of the essence, so I'll try to speak to that. Point number two, the difference in the contracts, the two contracts, $976,000 over the term of the contract. Some people, a number of people have spoken that don't seem to think that's important or that matters. To me, that's very important, and it matters a lot. Okay, how do you reconcile those two, the first point and the second point? The idea that's come up most recently is the Council of Governments. When I first heard that, I go, oh, sounds like a good idea, but how would that make the contract cost any less? The cost might still be the same, so it might not work out. One of the most important things that Carissa Cummings said at the from AHRC at the meeting last week is that a council of government could have lower costs than the existing nonprofit. And she spelled out a number of possible ways that the costs could be lower as a council of government compared to what there is now. She said they thought it could possibly bring the cost down close to Rumpke. So that's where I said in the ballpark. The $976,000 difference is out of the ballpark. It's not even close. But if it could be close, one of the city council members has shared with me that if it could have been a difference of $200,000, $250,000, maybe instead of $976,000, maybe the results could be different. So
okay, and we need you to summarize.
Okay, the last point. Why is time of the essence? Time seems to be of the essence. That's why I waited the whole time this evening instead of waiting till January. I mean, I might be back in January too, but, okay. One of the ideas is, it might not be feasible, it might not work, but one of the main ideas right now is the assets of Athens Hocking Recycling Center, the trucks, the workers maybe, the assets could be brought over to the Council of Government. And if that is possible and if the numbers work, it seems like that could be one of the best ways to go. But time seems to be of the essence. Within 6, 7, 8 months, AHRC's assets, trucks might have already had to be sold off. They don't, as more time goes on after 6, 7, 8 months, they're not even sure they can make it into 2025. So if the idea is to bring the assets from AHRC to the Council of Government, if that works out, then it has to happen in the first 6 or 7 or 8 months of the new year.
Thank you. We appreciate you making the comments tonight.
So that's the main idea. Maybe somebody from the city can hit the ground running, maybe.
We've got good staff working
see
on
if
it.
this is possible.
Thank you. Thanks for waiting tonight. Yep. Okay. Mr. Whaley, we're done tonight.
Okay.
We are with comments,
All
but
right.
thank you. I appreciate it. Yes.
I just wanted to second his comments about Rumpke.
Okay. No, I think we're done tonight with the Rumpke discussion. Are there any other, Aaron, you're not talking on that? Okay. 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 You could.
Okay.
Last comment for tonight, I think.
All right, I'll make
Please.
sure it's worth y'all time. I promise. So I wasn't here originally for the vape shop issue. My name is Aaron Thomas. I've been in Athens since 1997. I started my business a year and a half after college. I love Athens. I have left Athens working on cruise lines. I continue to come back to Athens. Over the past 12 months, I have committed to the mayor's office, the DEI coordinator, Lacey, working with Councilman Carey, to work on more diversity in the city of Athens, mainly more diverse businesses in the city of Athens. So this is a very touching subject, which I really don't like to share, but I feel it's time to share this, especially with you all tonight, considering some of the things that's going on. When I started my business as an OU alumni, a community member, I was constantly harassed by the police, by the city police. My customers were stopped, their cars were searched. Informants walked into my businesses thinking I'm selling drugs. Okay? It's not just happened to me, but to other black businesses here in town. So when I email you all about making Athens a better business location, there's a reason behind it. There's a business in this room right now that's been open just as long as I have. Don't look like me, but I guarantee the police has never sent informants into their business trying to buy drugs. Okay? But yet I continue to fight for this area. Okay? Today I spent the day in Columbus with Lieutenant Governor, Department of Development, fighting for this area. Okay? I've been trying to secure money for the past few years to encourage more minority businesses to come to Athens, for more minority students to stay in Athens. What has happened? 3 of those have moved. 2 of those was harassed by the police officer in the past 3 to 4 years. So it continues. Is this something no one knows about? Of course not, because it's a very touchy subject. So when I send these emails, I want not access to respond back to me, because I'm trying on the back end to make Athens a better place for everybody. We can't sit here every day and say we want more diversity, but what are you doing to bring in more diversity? Are you reaching out to Jay Edwards? Are you reaching out to Senator Hoagland's office? I am. Are you meeting with Lieutenant Governor's office? Are you meeting with Department of Development? Are you meeting with the Minority Business Council? I am. And I encourage you all next year to try to make the initiative to make Athens a more inclusive. The talk that's been going on since I've been here still remains talk. But we have spent the last 3 months debating underage smoking. Let's talk about the racism in the city of Athens. Is that a touchy subject? Nobody wants to talk about that. I deal with it. I can't change my color. I wake up every day. I'm the same person. But this is the things that need to be discussed. Don't say we want more diversity if you're going to harass the diverse business in this town. Okay?
Thanks for the comments.
That's the discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. We have 3 resolutions left before we adjourn. The first one is a resolution 1223 expressing appreciation of the City of Athens, Ohio to Councilmember Ben Ziff for his public service. This is introduced by all members of council, and I believe Councilmember McCary.
Thank you, President Isley, for giving me the honor of recognizing Councilmember Ziff, with whom I've been able to sit at this end of the dais and really enjoy this experience. Whereas Ben Ziff served as an at-large member of council from January 2022 through December 2023, and whereas Ben Ziff, during his tenure on City Council, has served on the Finance and Personnel Committee and the Transportation Committee, and whereas Ben Ziff provided expertise from the business sector, and whereas Ben Ziff offered practical considerations from his professional experience in emergency healthcare services and brought enthusiasm and optimism to the council, openly asking questions and participating in discussion. And whereas Ben Ziff has shared his baking skills with treats he brought to council meetings and has generously given of his time to be a public servant, thank you for all the moments of levity, and we present you with this resolution of appreciation. Thank you.
Can I say
And-
thanks?
and-
Thanks.
Okay, and we need to make it official, we need to make a motion, a second and a vote.
I move that we formally honor Ben Ziff with this resolution of service.
Second.
Okay, no, you may not. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Nay.
And we have as a token of appreciation.
What?
Great.
Oh. Oh. Oh, jeez. There it is. Yeah.
Okay. We now have a resolution 1323, a resolution expressing the appreciation of Cities of Athens, Ohio to Councilmember Sarah Grace for her public service. And I believe Councilmember Reisner.
I have the
you have a
resolution, yes.
Resolution.
Resolution introduced by all members of council. A resolution expressing the appreciation of the City of Athens, Ohio to Councilmember Sarah Grace for her public service. Whereas Sarah Grace has served as an at-large member of council from January 2018 through December 2023, and whereas Sarah Grace, during her tenure on City Council, has served as chair and member of both the Planning and Development and City and Safety Services Committees, as a member on the Transportation Committee, and as council's advocate on the City University Joint Police Advisory Council, JPAC, and the city's Affordable Housing Commission, and whereas Sarah's public health background served to protect our citizens as we navigated through the COVID-19 pandemic by introducing legislation in support of face coverings and social distancing regulations during a state of emergency, and whereas Sarah Grace introduced legislation to declare race a public health crisis, and whereas Sarah Grace is aptly named as she has served on council with grace and quiet fortitude, and whereas Sarah Grace has generously given her time to be a public servant, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Athens, Ohio, Section 1, the City of Athens does hereby express its appreciation to Sarah Grace for all her faithful and distinguished service to the city as an at-large member of Athens City Council, and wishes her well in future endeavors. I'd like to make a motion that this resolution be adopted unanimously.
Okay, we have a motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that resolution is passed, and Great.
Thank you.
Last one is a resolution expressing the appreciation of the City of Athens, Ohio to Council President Christine Nisley for her public service. Introduced by all members of council, and I think, Sam, you might have the honors on this one.
I do, and let me just say first that President Nisley has been a teacher, a mentor, a model president, a friend to me over the past 6 years, and we will miss you immensely. Resolution introduced by all members of council. A resolution expressing the appreciation of the City of Athens, Ohio to Council President Christine Nisley for her public service. Whereas Christine Nisley first served as an at-large member of council by filling a vacancy in March 2008, was then elected to serve at-large through December 2014, and has served as the first woman president of City Council from January 2015 through December 2023, and whereas Christine Nisley, during her tenure on City Council, served as chair on the committees of Finance and Personnel, Transportation, and Committee of the Whole, and as a member of the Committees of Community Issues and Recreation, serving with insight and thoughtful questions on legislative matters. And whereas Christine Nisley, as President of Council, led the City Council meetings with decorum and respect, and whereas Christine Nisley was always available to provide guidance, direction, and encouragement to council members, And whereas Christine Nisley was gracious and welcoming to visitors attending meetings, educating them on council's role in city government, and informing them of meeting protocol. And whereas Christine Nisley was an advocate for the city's Beautification Day, graffiti awareness program, and could often be seen walking along our city streets, collecting and disposing of litter throughout our community. And whereas Christine Nisley has generously given her time to be a public servant, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Athens, Ohio, the City of Athens does hereby express its appreciation to Christine Nisley for her faithful and distinguished service to the city as President and at-large member of Athens City Council, and wishes her well in future endeavors. I make a motion to approve this resolution. Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And I believe. I'd like to address your attention to the screen. There will be a red bud planted at the community center. There's a plaque that is coming. Which will forever be memorialized at our community center.
Oh, that's lovely.
Thank you, President Nisley.
Thank you, thank you. All right.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
We will make a motion to adjourn. And when we have a second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you all so much.
Great job, everybody.